The Council has assembled. They are eager to hear your report.
We begin tonight's meeting of the Council by calling the Council to order. Hello to everyone, and thanks for joining us. The Council is a live Twitch talk show and podcast discussing Star Wars, The Old Republic. I am Redna, and with me are my fellow Council members, Sakari.
Hello, everybody.
Magic Ace.
Hey.
And Hollow Elise. She's not here, but she looks good in that photo.
She
says hello too.
She glows. Right. let's butter her up so that she's happy with us when she comes back.
We miss her so much that we have to just talk about her. So like half of this episode we talk about Elise. Just kidding.
All right. So tonight's topic of the week, we're going to talk about galactic politics and story. And for the very brief overview of all of that, it's basically where are we on the galactic stage right now? Where are the Sith? Where are the Jedi? Where is the Empire? Where is the Republic? And all those other third-party groups that we've all come to know and love. Basically, it's how is everybody doing? That's going to be the plan. Magic, where can people find us?
Well, if they're creepers, at our house, but we prefer you find us on social media first. So those social medias happen to be thecouncilswtor.com. That's where you can find all of our awesomeness and all of our stuff. We're also on facebook.com/thecouncilswtor. And of course, we're on Twitter at thecouncilswtor. We also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/thecouncilswtor. That's where you can find us.
You're getting better and better at that.
Yeah, now that you've jinxed it, next time I'll be like, blah, 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 blah,
This is
blah.
knock on wood. Yeah. So, before we go any further, Redna wanted to put a comment or two extra into the pot about our discussion topic last week. If you recall, our discussion was monetization, how games are using loot boxes, loot crates, that kind of a thing, as a strategy. Specifically EA, they really like the idea, to make money, to continue monetizing their game.
Yes,
so, Redna,
what are you thinking?
Tell us your wisdom, sir. We are listening with bated.
I don't know about wisdom. I just tried to mark the things I didn't think had been mentioned. And respond. I'll lead with a response, especially since Elise isn't here to retort. But I do agree that companies can be sleazy. Mm-hmm. But that my point is that members of society in the open market and the businesses should be aware that a company will streamline to make money, and you should protect your own children. Not that there's just,
That sounds a little familiar.
Like this should be assumed,
making.
Right? This should be quite assumed. But anyway, the thing that we can do as consumers is that we can make pressure and be aware where our money is going to. I think, frankly, the Battlefront 2 example is ideal because it shows that an open market left to regulate itself is starting to do so with the influence of the consumers as well as the owners of the IP. I do wonder if this had been such a big deal had it not been utilizing the Star Wars IP, because there are a lot of extremely vocal, opinionated people when it comes to their Star Wars. But I'm glad to have seen it come. Particularly because I think if EA tries this kind of a stunt again, no matter the IP at this stage going forward, I don't think that anybody's going to let them get away with it just because they'll say, hey, you can't do this Battlefront 2 stuff to us again. But we'll see, right?
Yes, we will.
Selling a game and then making you pay to not just be competitive, but to be able to fully participate is kind of dumb.
Right.
It makes sense in a free-to-play environment, but when you're paying premium prices for a game that's being released with pay-worthy means, frankly, the necessity for having to pay for it in order to play the game in full, that's kind of underhanded, and I think that's kind of what we ended up seeing here, right? Mm-hmm. In an environment like Galaxy of Heroes, there is certainly these loot boxes, although they actually do have direct purchase items as well, which is why it's a lot more desirable. Or they have limited loot boxes where there's like 3 things and you probably want all 3 and they're themed together for that very reason, and you can, purchase that way. It's still random, but it's also a completely free-to-play game. It's the whole conversation around the loot boxes reminds me of the conversation that we were going around several years ago, that releasing games and then releasing DLC, it used to be, hey, you guys, this is the concept of releasing an incomplete game and then making me pay to get the rest of it.
Right.
But it worked.
It worked for a
Have
while
my
until people
partially
got really
complete
outraged
game.
and then stopped buying games until they were released in full, and then buying at slashed prices in bundles.
I happen to like what they did with Mass Effect though, with the pure fact of like, or even like League of Legends. You have a game, but then if you want extra content, like the game's already complete, but if you want extra content to add to your experience and or to, just spice it up, like different outfits and stuff, you can buy that stuff. I like that personally.
Well, certainly, and I think that's where the industry generally, I'm sure there are still some exceptions, but generally what we found in the gaming industry is that the designers have realized that when they sell a game at full price, it needs to be a complete game. Mm-hmm. But then if it continues to generate revenue, that they may then add additional bonus side material. It doesn't require you to play that material in order to get the best weapons or to, be competitive. Right. Especially like in a PvP environment, but instead it's just a added benefit for the diehard fans that really want to explore deeper some of the side content.
And a lot of like cosmetic stuff as the prizes for that,
and cosmetic
incentivize, but it's entirely
particularly within loot boxes. I think people have discovered that cosmetics are completely inoffensive, and in fact, it is a great way for people to feel as though they can contribute to the game monetarily while getting something that kind of indicates, hey, I like this game enough to support it with extra money,
Right.
But the one thing that really kind of struck me. Oh, actually, before that even, you guys did forget to mention that the cost of development has actually been going down while revenue has been increasing dramatically on loot box sales that take very little.
I didn't forget because I had no idea.
Yeah. So since 2009, I think, the amount of money that's being invested in game development by EA has been declining while their revenue has been spiking. Mm-hmm. So the argument that is often touted by people that don't fully understand the situation is that, well, games are becoming so expensive to develop nowadays that they need these alternate means of monetization because the prices have remained stagnant for so long that they need to explore these other ways. It's not entirely true. It's also the argument that the prices have been stagnant isn't entirely true either. I do remember my original Nintendo, and the games were $15 to $20. Mm-hmm. Now standard is $50 to $60, unless you're an indie game.
Yeah, that's freaking nuts.
Collector's
That's why I don't play games anymore.
Original
like just
Nintendo.
Star Wars.
Yeah. Right.
Hey,
but it
don't
does
mess
show
with the original
prices have
Nintendo.
been increasing. It's been slow, but it does exist. I actually don't mind if they explore alternate opportunities to monetize. I'm fine with that. I do have a problem when they don't provide me with a complete game and they charge me complete prices for it and then want more money from me later. The one thing I did think about, it struck me while I was talking with Elise on Friday night, was that CXP, if you think about it, the original launch of CXP in Star Wars The Old Republic is almost the exact same process that they implemented with Battlefront 2. You could only get loot from loot boxes that you could only get with obscene amounts of grinding, unless you wanted to pay real money to accelerate how you got those loot boxes.
Right.
There was no way for you to get endgame gear other than that exact system. We got really upset by that, and they ended up backing off and adjusting that so that you can actually play the game the way you want to get the pieces of gear that you need to play that game the way you want to on a harder difficulty. Although the PvP side of it is still actually quite broken. It's interesting that
PvP.
They clearly didn't see this coming when they had it happen on a mini scale within our game, effectively the same monetization scheme that they were employing.
Scheme.
The only last thing that I did want to say was that I agree that there will be countries that will regulate. I still do not believe this is gambling. And by our legal code, it's not gambling. It certainly feeds off of some of those same sensors within the mind in order to manipulate an addictive response.
Right.
It's a gamble, but it's not gambling, because you take a gamble when, like I said, when you like drive down the road that you may or may not get in a car accident. So it is a gamble without the definition of gambling, which is what I was trying to say before. Right. So I agree. I don't think it's gambling.
If you define gambling very
gamble.
specifically as the chance to win more money, then yes, correct.
Right.
Everything's a gamble. You know, the fact that I expect I'm going to be breathing in 5 minutes is a gamble. You know?
Well, and I'm not wagering
a gamble
my
you
money
really
for
don't have
more
a choice
money,
about.
is what I talk about. Is, you know, that's where gambling and government regulation has already been approved within the United States. I don't approve with them getting in my video games because I decide to spend my money some way. At the same time, I acknowledge that other countries are going to explore it. I acknowledge there are going to be countries that put restrictions on it. The Chinese government already requires those statistics and probabilities to be published. I am 100% okay with other countries taking political steps to subjugate their own people. I just don't want to see it happening in the United States.
To me.
Particularly because it's still going to impact the game. It's going to be a global game, so we'll get to see the benefits of that, but we as a people don't have to suffer for it.
Right. Yeah, I don't care if it happens to you. I just don't want it to happen to me, right?
Right.
You guys do whatever you want to do. So,
that was my last thought. It's a little bit pessimistic maybe, but
hey,
America, don't be foolish. Let the others do it to themselves.
I was about to say that's not necessarily pessimistic. I would say realistic is more what that would be. But unless I'm pessimistic too, and that's realism for me.
Although,
I guess it's all relative.
The United States government definitely likes to get involved in things. So you want to talk about a little bit of pessimism from me? I don't expect much. You know, I don't expect it not to happen. It will happen sooner or later. At least that's my take on it. So.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So with that said, I know I would say usually this is the icebreaker. This is the question that we talk about to get discussion going. But I think we're already there. What we'll do is use it as a primer for tonight's discussion. And it's a real simple one. And I'm pretty sure that I already know both of your answers. But here we go. I'm going to ask it anyway.
Ridiculous.
Namely, here it is.
We're not that vocal.
Does Star Wars lore matter to you? Why or why not? And we will start with Magic because I'm pretty sure she's the most.
What? No, you always
She
start
will-
with me. Start with Redna this time.
Beat me if I don't. Okay, fine. Redna. Redna. Does Star Wars lore matter to you? Why or why not?
So the contrarian response would be, hell no, it doesn't matter. Why on earth would it matter? I mean, Disney's
trapped
just going
him
to
this
sell
time.
it and reset the slate anyway, so who cares? The honest answer is, of course, this is why I have a canon podcast. But I actually really, really like how they've gone about their transition. So first and foremost, I love the fact that the EU exists. And in particular, I like the fact that they did not just take... Everybody thought that at the time that what Disney was doing was saying, here's everything you ever knew. We're shoving that to the side and saying, nah, we don't care. We're starting over. Instead, they labeled it. They labeled it with the term legends. And I like the term legends because legends in our society and by vocabulary, it's not mythology. Mythology is completely made up and no basis of reality. Legends generally have a foundation of truth that might have been exaggerated or details changed over time.
It's a step better than mythology.
Right. And so what we're seeing is, okay, for example, we now know that rather than Ben being on the Luke side of the Skywalkers, it turns out Ben is actually on the Leia side of the Skywalkers.
We were
Those
way
legends got
off.
confused.
Samsonite. Sorry, bad.
But, Thrawn still exists. We know that Bane exists. We don't know the details yet until they choose to revisit that. It also makes it more interesting to me because, more realistically, something like the Old Republic, I can basically live with the confidence that everything I know about the Old Republic is canon until somebody comes in and screws that up. So right now, it could legit be the full-on canon. All we've ever had concerning this time period is confirmation of pieces. So as far as we know, the whole thing is true.
Stuff. The only way I'll accept the new stuff is they pull the thing that J.J. Abrams did with the new Star Trek and be like, alternate timeline. Then I'll be like, cool, I'm on board. Now I love this movies. But until then, meh.
Well, and that's the problem with an MMO in particular as a gaming structure. In order to try and have any kind of continuity within storytelling, you can't. It's all got to be linear, unless you want choices. If you have choices, then everything is an alternate reality, even between your own characters, because you make different choices with different characters.
Yeah, and that's why they had to step in at some point. This is still EU, but they had to step in and say, okay, the canon is that Revan was a man. The canon was that he was a human.
Well,
and a male.
George Lucas did that part.
Yeah, but I mean, they had to step in at some point because there was more history that was being built on it, and they had to solidify something in order for Bastella's story to make sense and for there to be a romance,
Right.
and for there to be children and descendants. So
because George had this whole idea in his mind, and the game developers were like, "Let's make Revan a woman," and he's like, "Absolutely not! You'll ruin my story." So then when the second one comes around, they're like, "But this one we're making a woman." He's like, "Whatever, I don't care." Yeah, he's like, "Whatever, I don't care." So because I know this because as a female, I was very dashed to find out that canon Revan was actually male. So I had to go find that stuff out. It was very devastating.
Yeah. So
well, if it's any consolation, as per real life, he ended up having a daughter that has been very invested in the ongoing Star Wars storytelling, and as a direct result, he definitely started to embrace the fact that women actually do matter in storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah, God forbid. I mean, we're literally over half the population.
Shh, don't make him mad. Writers don't make him mad. Renda, do you want to introduce the poll this week that we had? Because we did ask a very pertinent question.
I want to know if Magic thinks it's canon.
Oh, yes, we didn't get to her.
He's used to making me go first, so he just assumed I'd already gone.
Yes.
I think my position has been stated every single episode pretty much ever, but since it's pertinent to right now at this moment, I will say, and just in case we have new viewers who have not yet seen the others, absolutely. Like, if Star Wars lore didn't matter, I would not be playing this game, because then it would basically be like the mobile game that you guys have been playing, like those Galaxy Heroes or whatever, just like random characters all together, just playing their thing, doing their thing. Oh, this person wields this lightsaber, this person doesn't. Then it's just kind of like random stuff together. But if lore matters, then you have stories to tell. And that's why I get into video games like this, is because there's a story to tell. I was a bookworm as a child. I was so into books, which is my love of the Star Wars universe, is because I read all the books. That's what I did. My kids have the books. I still have the books when my kids are in high school and college. If they want to read those books, they totally can. So to me personally, oh my freaking gosh, yes. Otherwise, why am I playing this game? Because I want good stories. These video games are interactive stories that I can be a part of. I can make the decisions that in my brain is just like a story. Otherwise, I'll go back and play Star Fox because the story doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, I would say roughly the same thing. Like, for me, I like the notion that everybody kind of fills in a piece of the story, and then this writer puts out something, and then this game puts out something, and collaboratively it becomes this whole world that, when you play a game like this, you take part in that story in the midst of the greater narrative, and so that there's a continuation, and that's definitely what I like about it. I am happy that the new canon is building so well. I was dashed when they got rid of the EU, but the new canon and the stories that they're coming up with seem to be okay. It's just it feels very restricted to me right now, so maybe we'll talk a little bit more.
I have no emotional attachment to them. I can't buy any of the new stuff. The last book I read, sorry, Magic Baby's talking to. The last book I read was Jaina Solo taking off her her engagement ring and giving it back to Jagged Fell. And I'm still invested in that storyline, but in this new stuff, that never happened. She doesn't exist. And so to me, these new stories, I don't want to read them. I don't even want to read the new Thrawn book, because I'm just I liked the old Thrawn books. I have them. I still read them on occasion just to keep myself into it, so I can't really yet get invested. I'm not saying one day I won't be invested in the new stories, but as of now, I can't until I finish what I was already into and finish that storyline with Jaina and Jag. Nope, it's not gonna happen. Yeah. Oh, and Alana Solo, Jason's daughter, not freaking Ben or Kylo Ren or whatever he is. Alana Solo, I want to know, okay? Because she's a freaking princess in her own right. I need to know what's gonna happen. Okay, so that was my point of view. Since you asked,
I'm scared now to discuss more of this.
Well, no, please do.
Because people are very emotionally invested in the EU still to this day.
If we want to actually discuss the new quote-unquote canon as it's being established, I will go. I don't think I've ever actually been on the record for saying it, but there is a feel that the old canon, particularly the original Thrawn trilogy, really kind of set a tone where the novelizations and the storytelling and elements that were being told, it was like the difference between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Like, what's coming out right now is being written it feels mostly young adult. It's not written as I don't know how to say it. Like,
you want to say that the target audience is a little different, and because of that, that's slight
exactly.
Genre
which it makes sense, right?
difference.
They're trying to make sure that they keep getting the next generation, and I can appreciate that. But what I really enjoyed about the Thrawn novels is that what's the author's name? I can't think of
Timothy Zahn.
Timothy Zahn.
Timothy Zahn writes incredibly articulately with a breadth of language that you don't get from Harry Potter. And as such, it felt good. Like he wasn't talking down to me. Like he was actually fully elaborating the thoughts that he had in his head. And I haven't really come across any novels that have embraced on that level. Even his new Thrawn novel hasn't really embraced it on that level. For me, that would be one of the big things that would really get me committed. And my other major complaint is that it is now official canon that if you spin your lightsaber over your head fast enough, you can fly.
Yes, ridiculous. Sabercopters.
See, you guys keep. Luckily, I've never seen that because I would probably rage quit whatever it was.
Awful.
You guys tell me about that all the time, and I'm just like, thank God I don't. I've never seen it. I never watched Rebels or anything, so I don't know. I watched the Clone Wars with my son, but I didn't watch the cartoon. Yeah, the series. We've got Netflix, so we watched that. But I've not seen Rebels because I don't think he's emotionally ready to watch anything like that. It's a little too grown up and dark for my 5-year-old. So I've not watched it. And I don't want him watching anything that I've not seen Star Wars wise, because like the whole Leia in the bikini thing, like they still objectify women in a certain respect, and I'm not gonna let my 5-year-old grow up seeing that crap. So
the sexy one was Jabba the Hutt. What are you talking about?
What was that?
It was Jabba. Jabba was the sexy one. She was just like, get her out of the way. Let's see,
awesome
Jabba.
fat rolls.
Sorry, I'm trying to redeem this.
Buddy.
No.
No, I'm just saying. We've not seen that. So thankfully, I've not seen the helicopter saber things because that's just a whole bunch of bull crap. I mean, I understand we have the Force, but we also still have physics. I mean, come on. what is that? I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm just glad I don't know.
Can we bring up the poll? Because it was an important question this week that we have to.
I guess
to get it out there,
especially because it was so divisive. It was down tooth and nail to the last minute. But our straw poll, which Sakari I'm sure is going to be putting up, is: should SWTOR do away with the Eternal Empire and go back to just the Empire versus the Republic? Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Dun, dun.
Or just say yes or no.
or as the attendant would say, yay or nay.
So feel free to vote in chat if you'd like to. You just have to hit A or B, and it will tally all of the votes. We'd like to see what you think. Is it time for the Eternal Empire to go the way of the Hutts or the Rakatan Empire or whatever else is out there that has gone away? And for us to get
them not implode in a violent manner like the Rakata did, but
yes, because it could blow up and leave like a vacuum. But is it time to get back to basics and to the classic?
I'm tired of not being able to say dirty pubs. Gosh dang it!
Oh wait, hold on.
That's for you right now.
You can't say dirty. You got to say pub scum or something, right?
Rebel scum, right?
Rebel
I'm sorry.
scummy.
Have you seen some of those smugglers? They need a bath. Okay, dirty pubs.
Oh, you mean it literally?
It used to be derisive when you
Yeah.
called someone a pub lover, but
Hey,
I think I've owned
on
it for so
occasion-
long that people decided it's not an insult anymore.
I, on occasion, need to play pub side because I've played the same 4 stories over and over and over again on the imp side, that the pub side's a needed breath of fresh air. So I say dirty pub only because I care.
You're invested, huh?
I am, yes.
So, Redna, tell us what you think. If you were to answer this question, how would you answer it?
Well, I mean, I think our conversation will lead here, but yeah, absolutely. I think that the very introduction of the Eternal Empire was a mistake.
Yeah,
I
you
kind of
don't
wish
like
that they
the
never
idea of a
existed.
third empire?
No, I don't like the idea of the decimation of the very notion of what the Emperor was, as well as the fact that apparently he's off making babies, and the forced conclusion
That's the
of
whole
which
point
none
of
of
being
your
emperor.
choices matter.
Zakari should know he's had his fair share of that.
Well, and that's fine. If my choices were to matter, then I would allow and be able to choose to have Sakari be my emperor.
Oh, okay. So, good thing you already took care of that then, Redna.
Magic, what about you?
Okay.
If you would answer this.
I say yes, but then on the other hand, it's like, how are they going to do that? I mean, hopefully they already have this figured out, because obviously we know lore-wise, this does not last. And then, like, we have all these stories that happen that Zakul and all those planets are not in. So does that mean they just go away completely? And so now we've had this whole part of the galaxy that's opened up for us, but we're just going to ignore it for the next, couple thousand years? Like, I don't even know. Like, the introduction of this was, I don't think personally, smart, because you leave open things like that. So, say, like I mentioned, Alana Solo, she has no idea Zakul exists or any of these other planets, because in their world it doesn't, in their galaxy it doesn't, in their universe it doesn't. Right. So to me, like, I just find it hard. Like, I play this new content because it's new content, but I'm not, like, super invested in it, because to me, I'm just like, none of this stuff matters. It's not there. So does it need to go away? I personally think so.
You may be able to explain it away by saying that the galaxy is a vast place, right? And there's a ton of worlds. We've not seen worlds like Seleucami and Bothawi, and I mean, there's a ton of worlds that have not made their, that have not showed up.
Seleucami.
Right, but a lot of them have been mentioned in some capacity.
How would you pronounce it, Redna? Because it's going to bother me that you say
what is it?
No, it's okay.
What word or what planet?
Dathomir. There's a lot more worlds in the Star Wars galaxy that we haven't even gone anywhere near, and maybe there's so many that Zakul just kind of becomes insignificant in the whole lay of the land. That's my excuse.
I actually thought it was whatever this new planet is from one of the Chiss system worlds. What I kind of appreciated that they added it, but it wasn't one that had been explored in the canon previously. We'd seen some in the EU, but this is not one of the ones that we'd seen. So it was, since they brought in the author of the material and the race himself in order to participate in the storytelling elements, I kind of appreciated that we got to actually kind of expand on our EU that we thought we'd never get new additions to.
But it's a big
something planet. I'm not happy with is Saganu, the Chiss. Yeah, like, how come he didn't, try to pick up with my agent? I worked hard for that, and all she got was a freaking kiss and a holo call, and then she gets to meet him again, and still yet just a minor mention. Come on, I live for the Chiss. Why? Why did you ruin this opportunity for me, BioWare? Anyways, yeah, I do I agree, Redna. I like that they brought that in. I wish they would do more with the Chiss, honestly, rather than just say they're agents of the Empire. They're the only alien race that works with the Empire.
Right.
Well, so actually, here's a question for you, because I will be honest, I was paying attention to the chat room and completely tuned you out. So I think you might have spoken spoilers and I didn't hear them. But
heck yeah,
does that light versus dark companion that you got that is Chiss, if you have her out, does she interact at all on this planet?
She's just like any of the other extras, doesn't do anything.
So like, Redna, let me give you an answer. This planet
what a lost opportunity.
This planet is a flashpoint, and it's just a flashpoint, and and I think you're forced to use the companion that they give you for the flashpoint. Yeah. So it's like it's irrelevant. You can't choose your companions.
Yeah, but the initial conversation, they acknowledge whether you're Chiss or not. But then once the flashpoint starts, once you go into the
character,
flashpoint,
they will.
Right, they acknowledge yes, you're Chiss, or they acknowledge that you were an agent and you worked with him before. Or if you tried to involve romantically, he kind of hints to it, but then it's just dropped cold after that. And you go on to the flashpoint, you do the new content, and afterwards it's like, meh, wait until next time. I'm like, yay!
It's like, we have to have that little, here's the workflow of this thing, and if you are a Chiss, then we have, hello, nice to see you, fellow Chiss. So then you return back to the regular line and keep going.
Right.
And it never.
You're one of the most powerful people in the galaxy, and you happen to be Sith. But I'm just gonna say, hey, I mean not Sith, Chiss. You happen to be Chiss, but hey, that's basically what it's like. So, did we put up the results of what the chat room said?
Yes, so results should be posting to chat right now.
As we speak.
Should Go
I
for it.
discuss what we saw or what the results look to be a little bit more challenged than our public. Fortunately, we had another great poll week, got over 600 votes. But it looks like we're 2-1, 2 yay to 1 nay in the chat room, whereas from our poll results, it was basically 80-20. So
Right.
that's 4-1, right? So a little bit lopsided from our larger community. 82% are saying yes, and 18% are saying no. So it would be more interesting. I don't think that Elise voiced an opinion. Do we know what she had thought? Because it would be interesting to know who isn't ready to move on. We did have in the
some
chat
very general thoughts. Well, actually, closer to the end of the episode, I do have some things that Elise shared with us that I packaged that we'll read to everybody. So, but it's more general than kind of a remark on that specific piece.
Because I wonder what her experience is like, since we know she came in basically just before this new storytelling, single player or single character, I guess, storytelling came in. And I wonder if she might match the comment that was made in the chat room, was that they didn't feel like they slogged through all these chapters just to have it hand waved away. To which I would definitely agree. I don't want to see it.
That's a mind trick.
Unfortunately, I feel like it's there, and I don't want them to wave their hands and say, you wake up because it was all a dream. Because if you recall, It started out all a dream. They really could pull that stunt on us, where, oh no, you actually never woke up. Now you're actually coming out of the carbonite.
I would be done with the game.
That would be freaking funny.
I would put it down and I'd say, okay, time to go play Battlefront full time.
Now that you said that, Redna, I totally want them to do that. I would die laughing. I'd be like, thank you. Can we move along now and just forget this ever happened? Kill them in one fell stroke and then just go back to our lives.
It was carbonite poisoning. It was all a serious trip. You actually killed the guy and they all went away.
Yeah. Or like when you actually killed the Emperor is actually the end. Carbonite at all.
Hey, there you go. That could be the conclusion, is that we get a next significant story chapter that concludes with you finally go up against the Hydra that is the Emperor, whatever spirit form he is drifting in the universe right now, finally coalesces into a single location and you defeat him. But it turns out, in fact, you were defeating him in your mind because you were reaching out across the galaxy and defeating him in the ether as opposed to the physical plane, which is the only way to truly defeat the Emperor. So while you do wake up, you have defeated the Emperor.
It's interesting that you go there. No spoilers. But I'm just going to say playthrough Cotet.
Okay.
It's more complicated than you think. That's all I'm going to say.
So, because we do have on our idea board as a conversation piece the evolution or devolution of storytelling within Star Wars: The Old Republic. But I don't think that's what we're doing this week, right? We are actually talking about where we're at and how we think we ought to go.
All right, so tell you what, since you bring that up, let me put into chat an article. I think it was this week. This week is when I saw it. It was posted by Larry Everett, who is a friend of all of ours that we know very well. He is the writer of
I actually don't know him. So I actually don't know him. So he spoke for me. He spoke for me, but I.
Yes.
I
well, the rest of us all know him, so you are included by being a member of the group. How about that?
I feel awesome.
So he put an article out there. He writes for Massively OP. His column is called the Hyperspace Beacon, and he wrote one called Hyperspace SWTOR. It's time to destroy the Eternal Empire, and basically brought up the idea that I wanted to surface for our discussion today. And his idea was like, look, it's time to, Star Wars is about the Jedi versus the Sith, the Empire versus the Republic, or whatever iterations or versions of those you have current at the time. It's about time to get back to that, and you have this third party that's dominated the storytelling for such a long time. Now, Red, that's going to be interesting with you in this conversation as one who has kind of resisted getting into that, because there's a sense in which we can't, quote-unquote, post spoilers in the midst of all of this, because I don't want to ruin it for you, assuming at some point here you're going to do that. So what I wanted to do instead, the idea of the discussion tonight, is to say, let's talk about, quote-unquote, galactic politics. There's all of these factions that we know of. and I don't think I'm spoiling this, Redden. You should probably know this, that when the Eternal Empire comes to power, they dominate the galaxy. They have everybody back against the ropes. So they are forcing...
I have played through Coffee.
Okay, so that's that. Okay, so it's not a spoiler to tell you this. They have everybody's back against the ropes. They have the Empire and the Republic both paying tribute to them, which of course is going to be oppressing their economies. They are living. It's basically like Rome, essentially. Like they come in, they take over. You pay them taxes, and you are an oppressed people. And so right now, and then there's devastation that happens to both the Sith and to the Jedi. So we have, in a sense, like the core story of Star Wars is nowhere to be found right now. It's entirely a story about something else. So part of that is like me thinking, like, well, where are those? What has to happen with the Sith now? What has to happen with the Jedi? What do we know about them? Where is the Empire, and what are its people like? What about the politics, the leadership? Is there any way that the Empire can come back in the midst of all of this? Same thing with the Republic. But it's bigger than that, because we've had, if you think back to in the last 300 years, before SWTOR, there has been the Mandalorian invasion that happened in KOTOR 1, and then, or slightly before KOTOR 1. Why is it that in SWTOR, the Mandalorians are like such a minor ragtag group of mercenaries, essentially, that are nowhere near the glory of the Mandalorian? You know, would they not be remembering that and trying to rebuild that?
Canderous Ordo failed reuniting the clans. That's why it's Canderous' fault.
No, except that in the novelization, Revan himself actually reestablished the Mandalorians with the helmet for the Mandalore in order to give them the ability to rise again. Yes. And this was hundreds of years prior to this game. So why haven't they, after several hundred years, become anything more than... Well, basically what you see in
what are they
the
trying
original
to,
movies.
What are they trying to achieve besides
KOTOR
just being
2.
out there?
KOTOR 2. Canderous was taken over as Mandalore. They don't straight up tell you, but if you listen to the voice, you know it's Canderous Ordo. You know it is. So Canderous is on Dunxon, the moon, trying to unite the clans and trying to bring people back up. So obviously the blame falls on Canderous. He's screwed up. I'm telling you, that's what it is. It's all Canderous' fault.
You want to blame Canderous. But so there's more to it, because
which I won't deny.
But then there are other factions that are in the midst of the Star Wars storytelling. We don't. This comes more from the EU because of the books that I've read, and Magic, you'll definitely, I'm sure this will occur to you. But the Black Sun. The Black Sun is huge in the EU. You know, it's an underworld element. It's the pirates. It's, you know, so you have this criminal underworld as well. And there's the Hutts and their thing. And then here we've got the Chiss Ascendancy. And then later on in the EU, we've got the Yuuzhan Vong. And I'm probably pronouncing that crazy. And Redneck can probably make fun of me for my pronunciation on that. But
That's how I usually pronounce it.
I think that was good enough.
Yuuzhan Vong, awesome. I'm nervous now.
That's how I say it.
So it's a very complicated thing. There's, you know, you have, it's not just about the Empire and the Republic, or whatever versions, the Jedi and the Sith. There's also third parties that come in, play in the midst of that, and then take an exit. But that fundamental core story is still the duality between the Empire and the Republic, which seems not to exist right now. And that to me is part of what the issue was. And that's why I think, for me at least, Larry's article struck such a chord. I'm like, yes, I agree. And it looks like the community tends to think, yeah, we should probably get back to that. So there is I wouldn't say an outcry, but there is a sentiment probably that we should get back to the core, bring the Empire and the Republic back.
So here's a few things that I have to complain about what I at least believe I'm aware of, and you can confirm or deny the established pattern. So the first thing that turned me off more than anything else is I made the foolish mistake of choosing to play a non-Force user as my first playthrough for Coffee. And then I'm promptly told that I'm infected by the Emperor. There's literally nothing I can do about that. Uh-huh. Oh, and by the way, I can now wield Force powers because of him, regardless of whether or not I want to. And yeah, so there's that, right? At no point.
Force rape. It sounds like you're saying it's force rape.
It's even worse than that, because it's like it's like possession
Right.
that basically trying to get you to willingly accept the possession as something as being a good thing for yourself, all the while being told
I'm just
that
trying
this
to
is
help
what
you.
because you're special or whatever. Like it's just absurd. Like
Red, you have to finish the Eternal Throne expansion.
It goes against all relevance. Like my gunslinger being possessed by the Emperor, quite frankly, being so important as to be possessed by the Emperor in the first place, that entire premise that my gunslinger is that important is absurd.
Right.
Like he's not. He's not. He's never wielded any political power.
Yeah.
He's never, sought after.
That's how my smuggler is. She doesn't care. She's like,
that
"What
kind of
ever?"
influence or gain, right? Like my goal is to make money and to do what I want in my life with as little government interference as possible, while perhaps working with the government in order to get more money from them, right? Like that's legit what my whole story has been about. And then this thing happens. Second, as I understand it, Kotet ends and you take the Eternal Throne, whether you want it or not. Mm-hmm. You don't have a choice.
You get
correct?
Yeah. It's almost like your people force you to take it. They're like, you're the figurehead. We're all behind you. Lead us.
Right. So now,
we're terrified. Because you've got the Emperor.
No matter what character I would ever play, in no way have I ever played a character with the goal of galactic domination. Now, I know you're the Emperor, Sakari, and that's something that you certainly aspire to be. So this is actually really cool for you because it's the realization of what you've always desired, right?
But as for myself,
no. So I role play my characters, though. I role play my characters through there. And there are characters that, yes, they aspire to galactic domination, and they're like, heck yeah, bring this to me, I want it. This is what I've lived for. But there are others that where I agree with you. Like my bounty hunter, he doesn't care about this kind of stuff. And he's very reluctant, and maybe I can roleplay that. Okay, they push him into it, and he gets in there reluctantly. But an Imperial agent, for instance, their whole MO has been about being behind the scenes and not being recognized. Right. And now they're not like, breaking cover. Everybody knows their face. So like your whole career as an Imperial agent, as an undercover, silent behind the scenes shadow operative is just, it's wrecked. There's nowhere else that you could go with that.
I will say this, though, that with the operative, you had one of three choices. You would either want to be better at being a shadow operative, or you could want to be free of any ability to people control you, or you would want to just drop off the grid and not have anything to do with anybody. So even like when you did the Shadow Revan and Keeper comes back and he's like, hey, let's free, this person that you worked with that was kidnapped. Let's free this person. She was captured. You have the option of three things. Looking at him like, yes, we were allies. We were good. We served the Empire. Or I'm only doing this for her. I hate your guts because of what you put me through. Or I'm not helping you. Screw you because I hate what the Empire did to me. So as an agent,
I no longer work for you. That was like a big thing about the agent.
Right. So like as an agent, you could actually want to go to world domination or galactic domination because you could be like, screw you. I'm never going to be in controlled again. I'm going to have the power. So actually it can work for an agent because that's how I played one of my agents. I was like, let's do this.
What I would say would have been a perfect story for the agent is to get wrapped up in the Genoharadan, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes.
Right. Because that's another group. If to catch anybody up who doesn't know who that is, you run into them in KOTOR 1. They are a shadow syndicate group that basically influences all of galactic politics by, like, they're essentially the assassins where they take out this politician and then the whole history of the galaxy is directed by them pulling strings silently behind the scenes. That is where the agent should have gone, in my opinion, to maintain that shadowy... But
that's extra writing, extra work for them. That's hiring more voice actors.
Heaven forbid they actually try to do a good job telling a diverse story set.
Right.
Well, it's so much easier when all 8 classes have the exact same options, no matter what.
There are no classes.
That makes it easy.
There are no classes. This is a single character story, and quite effectively, literally every other player in the galaxy has, by the storytelling itself, been killed. Like, no one else actually even exists in the galaxy. So the notion of operations is actually kind of ridiculous as well. But of that, I have played through it. So I know that as, the standard. The other side of it is playing through Kotfi, right? I got so irate in the last couple chapters because every single choice when it came to interacting with Scorpio, I'm supposed to hate her. Except through all of the storytelling, everything that she's trying to do makes absolute sense to me.
All right.
There are two significant threats in the galaxy, and they need to be removed. There's the Emperor, and there's me, who has the Emperor, right?
Right.
So for
I
all
don't
intents
know.
and Arkin, right? So she turns against Arkin, who runs the Eternal Fleet, and me, who runs everybody else, who's being possessed by the
spoilers. I can't tell you spoilers. Well, okay, what I'm going to say is, don't underestimate Scorpio. She is an amazing threat. She still scares
Which is fine. Does it let me actually say I agree
even
with
after
you? You've always been
Cotet.
right, and I've always tried to actually do what you were doing?
Yeah.
Because they won't let me do any of that.
Scorpio still scares me. Depending on what there's a choice. Okay, but depending on how it goes, you don't think so, Magic? You're
no,
not,
and
you don't
see when
Iocath and all of that having some.
Well,
repercussions.
I'm talking about it. We're not talking spoilers. So if you take Iocath out of the equation, she's not scary. She seems that they set her up to be scary because you don't know what her goal is at the time. Unless you're an agent. You know what her goal is because you've known it since you picked her up on Belsavis. She straight up told you. You even talked to a dude who said, I seen Scorpio's creation. And then they come in with Iocath and they're like, oh, this is actually where Scorpio was created. And I'm like, well, I remember the story and I've done it before. The guy on Belsavis that you talked to specifically says he saw her creation.
So you're seeing some inconsistencies.
Right. So if that is the case, that means he would have had to know
the Shadow
Iocath.
organization that actually helped in the development of her.
So these people in Iocath have been dead for hundreds of years, right? So so this guy is.
So how does this work, right?
Yeah. So how does that work out? So to me, I'm like, she's not scary because actually, if you're ignoring this crap that is Scorpio's story on Iocath with the gravestone and stuff, if you're ignoring that crap and you're actually looking at the original story for Scorpio, she's not scary. She's just trying to be free of her human bondage because she wants to self-evolve. That's not scary. That's just like every single other being out there that's not a coward who's trying to just survive.
Which quite frankly makes a lot of, this is why, what she does makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. She's basically removing the threat from individual freedom in the galaxy.
You got to kind of admire her. They set her up to be scary.
Both of them. And then she sits back and, there's a psycho that's put on the throne. But at the end of the day, she's nowhere near the threat that the Emperor and Arkin were because of her instability and her manipulatability as Scorpio sits there as advisor, making sure she doesn't, go beyond what Scorpio deems is acceptable.
That's actually why I enjoy Scorpio being in the new content. I actually enjoy picking her up and all that. Even her manipulations and her air quotes betrayal isn't really a betrayal because that's literally what she's been after since you pick her up on Valsavis is finding out everything.
Yeah, she's on her own personal quest.
Learning.
Absolutely.
Right. She's self-evolving. Like the whole thing, like in the agent storyline, she uploads herself to your ship's computer banks and then makes the decision to go back to her body. She almost didn't do it. And you have to convince her, if you come with me, you'll learn far more than you will if you get stuck in this ship. So she's like, okay, now does that sound like the Scorpio you see on Iocath? No, not really. It's not the same. So to me, I'm like, this is a whole bunch of crap. I don't believe it because this is not the Scorpio that I actually cared about.
Okay, so I'm just going to say.
So the Scorpio shows up on Iocath.
I have seen some nasty. I have seen some nasty things on Iocath, and she could. They could be a problem. That's all I'm going to say.
Agree.
Now, granted, you're like this. This. Immortal player that never ever dies, and if you do die, you respawn, and nobody can ever beat you. Actually, at the end of the day, so
you're like
yes, you will overcome.
If you play through it as an agent, do they explain how she got around the hard lock programming that she has to abide by your wishes?
Actually, that is because you air quotes died when you were taken away. It was like you died effectively, so her programming no longer was to protect you. And
so she just had to convince herself that you were dead.
Well, right. Basically, it's like, okay, I'm no longer shackled because this person's gone. Well, then 5 years later, you're like, oh, they're not gone. Well, my programming didn't just suddenly reactivate, so I'm still free. It's kind of like that. But they don't explain it. That's just like what the story is. But I will say something real quick. Sakari mentioned the Black Suns. I will say this. Oh, yeah, she also was on several self-reiterations is what she was saying. So she had also upgraded herself multiple times since you had last seen her as an agent. But you mentioned Black Suns. Black Suns is still a very relevant player in the books that I was talking about, like with Jaina and Jag and Alana and, you know, Ben Solo. No, just kidding. Ben Skywalker. Screw you, Disney. Anyways.
Lisa's still a
so
Ben.
like, right. Ben Skywalker, Luke and Mara Jade's son, like he had tangles with the Black Suns, and the Black Suns are actually out because they have their own agenda, and they were also working to destabilize the Jedi. So, right. I mean,
I'm telling you, the Black Sun.
Yeah, I always liked
the
Black Sun because I always liked the Black Sun because they were more along the lines of like the agent story itself, where they almost seemed more nefarious than the Hutts. Like they were always placed as being near rivals of the Hutts in, the criminal underworld. But it always seemed like maybe they were actually more powerful. They were just more subtle.
Yeah. And I mean, the way that their whole thing is organized, because they had, way back in the day, if I'm recalling this right, there's SWTOR, right? He's the Fallen Prince,
yes.
who was the head of the organization. But then he had these lieutenants that they called Vigos. Help me out here. I maybe get, but there was a Hutt lieutenant, and they were lieutenants, and they all had their different parts of this organization to run. I thought it was cool. It was essentially the mob.
Yeah, Vigo, I think that's right.
So I mean, it was just so cool. Like the Black Sun. That's one thing I think is missing in SWTOR for me personally, is there's no criminal underground. You do bump into the Hutts here and there on Nar Shaddaa, and I know on the Imperial side, there's like the three. One of them is I forget. But they're all working together in that sense, and to run the business there, and you kind of go help them out. But
then you had the Niktas and you had the Hutts, and
there's just not a solidified, centralized criminal underground. There's no even to change it up a little bit. What about Czerka? Right, we had this dominating corporation 300 years ago that
Disney.
ran the entire
Disney.
It's Disney. Disney
Czerka equals Disney.
That's hilarious. But I mean, you had this corporation, and there was more of a neutrality in it, but there was still, hey, we're here because of the business interest, and it was dominating, and there was Czerka's interests, and it wasn't always good, and it was kind of soulless and evil. If you think about it, it's like a neutral, I don't know, neutral maybe.
I mean, certainly. Wasn't Czerka also the one that was responsible for maintaining a copy of the Rat Ghoul Plague and starting to disseminate it again?
Yeah.
And manipulate and play with that?
So, I mean, like, for me personally, I miss elements like that, and I don't know what the exchange. What happened at the exchange? Yes, we bump into it here and there on Tatooine, but everything just, to me, feels so ragtag.
Well, but this is why I think within the game we have this rich... all of these rich storytelling elements. Remember that the Dreadlords came from a planet storyline on Belsavis, right? And then they decided to expand and grow that out, and did multiple expansions where they grew as a threat. Mm-hmm. There are all of these story elements that you are just now listing that could grow and be threats in the next expansions, and could in some way return us to hopefully, I would like to see some factions back in the game. At this stage, we have to wave our hands in order to acknowledge that there's more than one person in the game. But I would like to actually see an establishment, like even if there's some kind of move, like I would rather that you defer, like, okay, if you're a Sith, then you decide that you want to be the next emperor or whatever. And as such, the entire portion of the alliance that actually wants to be, free individuals in a determinate society allows them, decides to rebel against you, and they break free. You could tell that story. Or if you're a Jedi and you don't want to be, you shouldn't be aspiring to have power, then you make that decision, and as such, the fallout is the destruction of the alliance and, deterioration back down to rebel and empire. Like, there are ways that you can tell these stories, but I'd like to see it. And quite frankly, for my gunslinger, I want to be able to just say, guys, leave me alone. I want to go smuggle some illicit drugs, and you're watching me too damn close, Like,
do you want any death sticks?
You want to buy some death sticks?
Yes, exactly.
How about some spies? I've got a wonderful array here in my trench coat.
I think I need to go reassess my personal decisions, but,
So, do we want to see what Elise said?
Yes, let's put what Elise said up on screen. Basically, she gave some general input. She said, okay, here's the thing. Unlike some, I have no expectations. The story is good or bad based on its merits. Kotfi was weaker overall than Kotet, in my opinion, and the storyline has too many plot threads in the main story for me. The main baddies were the Emperor and his spawn, but they got lost at times in the chapters. It wasn't as well connected like Mass Effect 3, where you're running around solving problems so that you can wreck Reaper face at the Battle Royale at the end. Now, does that mean this is a failure? Not exactly. How long could we keep the whole light versus dark picking at each other thing going? And with us not being canon anymore, I assume that creates problems too. My favorite content is Shadow of Revan. I don't want to constantly chase rebel scum forever or fight evil empires. So they had to do something. This is kind of like WoW's Cataclysm, right?
I know nothing about that, so I'll just take your
I
word
don't
for
either.
that.
I'm like, this is where Elise is
Okay.
like, she brings in all of this like influence
This would
from other games.
be actually really interesting. So in Cataclysm, what they did is they actually quite literally redesigned the surface of the entire. So for them, it's like a couple planets. Really, it's two. There's and one is a primary significant. That's where when you think about WoW, it's Draenor, and it turns out that there was also this interdimensional gate that took you to a second one. But generally, basically what they did is they completely recreated the surface of the planet. The cataclysm was that there was this global cataclysm that actually destroyed things.
So now you're
And
post-apocalyptic.
it
WoW.
physically altered the surface of the planet, and as such changed starting areas and everything else, and enabled them to use all of the current assets of the game, but in an entirely new environment. As far as I'm aware, I'm sure there's someone in the chat room that says I got that wrong, but that's the basic premise, right? So there could be something in this, in as much as the events that rise to eliminate the Eternal Empire as a threat, regardless of who's on the throne, so destroy all those assets, all the Rakata tech and everything, right? And whatever came out of Iokath or whatever, like destroy those things, and you are displaced from the throne. And
something needs to burn it all down. Is what
something
you're saying.
changes, like you could literally change all of the surface of all the planets or the arrangements or whatever. Like there's just, especially because you could actually change all the planets because they've all been ravaged by the Eternal Fleet, and as such, their surfaces have been changed. That's the notion. I'm not sure if I'd like to see them go that far.
Please, dear Force, don't let it be the Rakul plague devastates the world.
Wouldn't that be hilarious if that whole section of the galaxy, that's why we never hear from them again, because they're quarantined, because they're all Rakghols.
Oh, wait, I got it. I figured it out. The Jedi Council does what they had to, which they've done before. They decide to come and take down the one upon the eternal throne and wipe their memory.
Oh yeah,
Revan style.
Revan style.
But then you got to have a bastila
And then
to
you
help
got to
bring that
start
spark
again
of life
from the
again.
beginning.
And then the next thing you know, you find yourself on Hutta again. Or like, what am I doing here?
Oh,
Listen, as my
God.
gunslinger, I'm not giving up my ship, so I'm just floating out in space, okay?
That's great.
Oh yeah, that's like KOTOR, the start of KOTOR 2. So hey,
Honestly, we
Exactly.
should legit talk about that stuff. That's funny. I think this is something that could be brought up later when we see what else comes out, because that's pretty great.
I think what the culmination of this is, and straight out of Larry's story elements too, is what we're thinking is that in a lot of ways this doesn't feel like Star Wars, because this doesn't really hearken to those things that we know best from Star Wars, whether it be the movies,
Jedi
the
and
previous
Sith anymore.
novels, exactly, all of those notions, and what we would like to see, and that's why the notion of the factions of the Empire and the Republic. That makes sense to us, because then you've got the embodiment of the Sith or the Jedi. If they were to be creative and do something along those lines, what I would actually like to see happen is that you actually do have the choice. I'm sure it's a lot of programming, and I'm sure they'll never do it.
And writing.
But I'd love it
Yeah.
that you make the decision that you want to serve the Empire or the Republic. And whether or not you're a Jedi Knight or a Sith warrior, you could actually do a faction change at this moment in the storytelling. I don't think it'll ever happen, but that would be meaningful to me, where my choices actually matter.
Right. I don't know. We got a lot. There's a lot. I mean, right now we're talking about where we are in the story. We've got flashpoints that are coming out. I have a theory that what's happening is another another forged alliances. It's like, hey, here's 4 flashpoints that are basically setting the stage for the next expansion. I think that's kind of where we are in the story now. Who knows where it's going to go? They are setting something up there. It's beginning to pick up some traction. Those are some non-spoiler teasers for Edna. At this stage, we should probably wrap it up. It is we are at the hour. Magic, would you like to tell people something? Eh? She has to push to talk to say this. How about we do it? She's got her hands full.
Very quickly, thank you guys all very, very much for tuning in and talking to us and chatting and sharing. Thank you so much for loving Star Wars: The Old Republic and Star Wars lore. And for those of you who didn't think you love Star Wars lore, I'm glad we could try to change your mind. We love so much that you support us and that you put up with Magic Baby in the background. Thank you so much.
Force persuade. Yes,
will like lore.
It was fun to see Magic Baby as well. The source of all of the noise that is part of our show every week. It's awesome. So.
Indeed. Do you want me to wrap it up, or are you going to take it?
You know what? I think I'll wrap it up because it's so rare that I get to do this. So here we go. That brings us to the end of the episode. The council is hereby adjourned. If you'd like to reach us, you can email us at thecouncil@thecouncilswotor.com. You can find Elise on Twitter at abrown35. Magic Ace is at the Magic Ace. You can get me at I'm Zakarian, Redna, of course, at R3DN4. Don't forget to visit our website, thecouncilswotor.com, and you'll find us on social media as well. Also, don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/thecouncilswotor. That is it for us this week, guys. Redna, closing line.
May the Force ever serve you.
we need to standardize this, I think. All right, guys, have a great week.
I understand.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
Forgive me, Master.